That we haven't had one announced yet in this scale. You. Happy New Year, buddy. Hey, can I give you a call in like 10 minutes? I just got in the middle of something, and, okay, 10 minutes. Later. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the first edition of Sit Down Saturday for 2020. Happy New Year! Speaking of which, I actually got some comments about my horn recently that it makes me a boomer. I'm guessing that means a baby boomer. I'm not part of that generation. I guess maybe technically if you exclude the Generation X, but that I'm an Xer, I think. Generation X. So most people have been calling me boomer. At first I thought they were calling me DMX's dog for the longest time, but that's more so a Generation X thing too, isn't it? Isn't it, love? Alright. In 2018, I did a Sit Down Saturday where I talked about the 10 figures that I wanted. And now we're 2 years later on, and I want to readdress this. Some of those things have been announced from that video. Most of them have not. My mentality regarding what to expect or what to hope for has drastically changed. So that's why I think this is a conversation worth having and a good kind of optimistic way to start off the new year, which is also important to me. I do have tons of things coming. I will have a Hound comparison with Fans Toys coming for a Sit Down Saturday. So obviously I will have the Hound review as soon as I get a hold of one. I didn't buy it, so I'm just waiting for Robert to get his and send it my way. I have a look at the Banana Force figure coming very soon. I have some more building stuff, lighting systems. I got tons of stuff coming this year. I'm super excited about it. I'm trying to get all of it situated. For those who've been following my channel, you can see I've had some scheduling errors because I just have so much stuff that I need to get out, but I need to space it out so that each one kind of has its own moment to breathe. Speaking of breathing, I can breathe a little easier now. Spite is out. The video came out. It got a good reception, and I appreciate that. It was a lot of work that went into it. Tomorrow will be the making of video, so if you're interested in kind of the process there. A lot of the guys seem to like the actual video content, so a lot of the making of behind the scenes stuff will be in tomorrow's video. It's also available on iTunes, Google Play, all that kind of stuff, so feel free to give her a listen. And thank you guys for checking it out. Probably my most personal one, so for better or worse. And let's get into the house cleaning. Get rid of 2019, get into 2020. The best worst list came out. They always divide people and create divisive conversations on who's right and who's wrong. Look, the truth is that I'm right, and the truth is also that you're right, because they're subjective lists. That's how that goes. A lot of people seem confused that I had MP44 in my best figures of the year. I'm not sure why. In the review, I clearly state this is the best prime I've ever handled. There were some comments like, well, what about the broken knee? I'm like, well, I didn't have that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have that issue. So, it's just interesting. Like, I think that thing is overpriced. 1,000%. I don't think it's worth the price tag. Independent of that, it's an amazing figure. To coincide with that, the Dummies did our worst list. That upset tons of people, as I knew it would. The truth is, most of the choices in that video that upset people were made by our very own lunatic Robert Detoff. And to be fair, I don't agree with a lot of his choices as well. You have to understand that the dummy episodes are short, and the conversations are about a half hour and some change that I then cut down. And for the Patreon folks, they'll know when those episodes get posted, which I think is in February, or maybe it's January. Soon. They'll know that in there I'm like, you're out of your mind for some of these choices. Now, to play devil's advocate and throw my friend Robert some bail, because he is a friend of mine, I want to support him. Let's say that I had 3 figures in my collection. Let's say that I had Hot Toys Mark IV Iron Man, which is amazing. Let's say I had Toy World Constructor, which is amazing. And let's say I had Fans Toys Spoiler, which is really good. And those are the only 3 figures in my collection. Fans Toys Spoiler would be the worst figure in my collection. Doesn't necessarily mean he's bad, it just means that I have a top tier collection. So there's some relativity within those conversations as well, and some nuance that might have been lost. But most of you guys seem to get it. And we were just cutting loose and having a good time, more importantly. The one last thing I want to talk about in regards to cleanup stuff is that SH Figuarts Force Awakens Han Solo. Look, that came out in December of 2019. Spoilers, it will 100% be my best figure of the year, or at least in the top 5 for 2020. It deserves it. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And I guess I should also say a lot of people were commenting on the DX9 design video for the Motormaster. Well, how come you're not combining them? Because it's not the combining video. That's not what I do here. That review is about what you get in that package. That's it. Later on, we'll discuss how they all work together, but it's important to not showcase something that might be cool or fancy or whatever the case may be that might make a product seem more important than it is. And I think DX9 Capone is great, but that review is about that figure, that purchase, and what you get there. So that's why we didn't cover the combining stuff. All right, moving on. So I want to get into this list, and the reason why is because I think we all know that the third-party Masterpiece game isn't what it used to be. That we might not get all the things that we want, and that a lot of these companies seem to be hanging on by a thread, some of which we'll be getting into on future episodes right here. With that being said, I looked at my list from 2018. I had the Deluxe Insecticons, the Omnibots. I'm like, man, forget all that now. Just give me the core stuff. So my list has been definitely narrowed. Now I say that to say this. What I am excluding from this list is stuff that has been announced by companies that seemingly will release it, even if it isn't already available. Meaning, my number one choice on the 2018 list was an Astro Train. I have expectations that Fans Toys will release their Astro Train, therefore he is omitted from this list. Does that make sense? So let's get into it. These are the 10 figures that I want announced in some capacity in 2020. And then next year, we'll take a look and see what happened. Number 10, any of the Decepticon or Autobot Target Masters. With one exception being Crosshairs, because he's the only one that we have. And this is number 10 on my list because it's not a super high priority for me. I would love to have them, don't get me wrong. 1000%. However, I can do without. I think they're cool. Some of them I always wanted as a kid and never got because it was kind of towards the end of my Transformers collecting, you know, so on and so forth, and whatever the case may be, it just didn't happen. And as a result, they were kind of like forbidden fruit for me in a way. So that's really my allure to them. Plus, I have this Crosshairs. It would be great if I had a couple extra figures to go with them. And let me be upfront, I would love if Make Toys continued with them. I think they did a great job with Crosshairs, and I would love to see them continue with the rest of the line. Number 9, our favorite larger-than-life triple changer, Broadside. A minor character in G1, playing little to no relevance in the later series, but one that we remember, and one that we remember fondly, and the character of which has kind of gone on to have his own mark in the comics and stuff, but the Autobot triple changer ranks need to be fleshed out, and he is one that I feel like should be done. He's often overlooked, he's often forgotten about, and the character design I think would be pretty cool and also relatively easy. Now the alt modes will never quite scale properly, as we all know, but who cares? There's a ton of scaling problems with all of these things. Let's just get over it. So sometimes that scaling drives me nuts. Like, if you're okay with Megatron not fitting in Starscream's hand as a gun, then you need to be okay with some other things. It's like pick and choosing rules. But he is definitely a character that did play a significant role in the later part of Season 3, and I think has kind of a cult-type following where many fans would be super appreciative if we could get a hold of one. Moving on, but staying in the same pocket of triple changers, we need a proper Sandstorm. The Unique Toys one never really quite cut the mustard. He's a character that's all throughout Season 3, has episodes that entirely center around him, played a huge part in it, and although Season 3 is far from the most popular Transformers series, it still has its mark, it still has its place in history, much more than Season 4, much more than the Target Master stuff and all that, so he deserves his spot a bit higher up with his Halloween swag. He's a character that just never really got his just due in any sort of 3D representation, and it would be nice to get one in the Masterpiece scale. And I'd love if MMC took a swing at that, especially coming off of their Saltus. I would love if they took a shot at that. Same for the Broadside. Number 7, Highbrow. Now he's gonna go hand in hand with my number 6, which is Brainstorm. Now Make Toys has announced these two, and I know we talked at the beginning of this video how we're not going to include announcements. However, I believe I said as a caveat, if the announcement is believable. And with each day that passes, the release of those two figures is becoming less and less believable. But those two need to happen. Having an Autobot Headmaster shelf without those two is becoming obnoxious. And I'm at a point with that where it's like, well, do I just get rid of these two and say I draw the line at Season 3? Or do I wait? And the truth is I'm a man of commitment. I don't know when to let go, so I'm holding out hope. But I would love, love, love if Make Toys continued and finished off their final two Headmasters, one of which looked like it made it to prototype, if not both. And they they both look great. And it seemed like had a little bit of speed, steam, and momentum behind it. I would love if they continued and finally put that figure, or those figures rather, out. Definite needs, and I love the fact when you can complete a shelf or complete a crew. Like getting that last Dinobot, getting that last Combaticon, whatever the case may be, like finishing off the squad. I love that. So I hope that they continue, and I would hope that they get those out this year. My number 5, the constant joke on this channel, Runabout and Runamuck. From season 3, I have no idea why they've never been made. I know iGear teased some way back when, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen, so I'm including them in the list. It's an easy make one, sell two scenario. Nobody's gonna buy just one. I know that the fan base for these is not going to be super large, but I feel like being able to double up on the mold, a company will be able to make their money creating it. It's like having one of the clones, right? It's like no one's gonna get just Runabout and no one's gonna get just Runamuck. I don't think anyway. I'm sure there's some knucklehead out there that's like, finally, my favorite character, Runabout. I'm gonna buy him and I'm out. But for the most part, I feel like most of us are gonna get both. It's a make one, sell two scenario all day long. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet because of the lucrative value of it, which I would imagine would be significant. But the truth is, maybe it's not, and maybe that's why it hasn't happened, because I honestly don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just making a guess. But that would be my number 5 choice. Plus, it's kind of the constant joke on this channel, right? The Runabout and Runamuck. So it'd be nice to kind of check that box. Numero cuatro, a Skylynx. Now, this figure is up high for me. However, the logistical nightmare of this figure does pose a problem. But after whetting my appetite with the MMC version, I really want a proper Skylynx. The MMC one, while I have my issues with it, was a lot of fun. And how dynamic that thing can be between the clawed legs and the wings and the long neck and tail and all that, for a display purposes, which is mainly my bag, it just opens up the door to so many possibilities in terms of how something could look dynamic in a given space. And that's what the big allure is to me. Skylynx isn't my favorite character by any stretch of the imagination, but what you can make Skylynx look like is, he probably has one of the top 5 dynamic looks of Transformers aesthetics. There's just so much going on. Claws and legs and wings and tails and necks and jaws and teeth, and there's just a lot of cool stuff there. Chrome. It would just look really good. I think DX9 has proven that they can make big figures. Fans Toys can make big figures, and I wouldn't be mad to see Zeta throw their hat in the ring, because I know they make stable figures. So I'd be okay with any of those 3 kind of tackling that, but I would love for a Skylynx to kind of have a space, so to speak, the spaceship. Number 3, Computron. The Autobot combiner that I feel like never really gets his day in the sun. He's often overlooked, not really considered. Like, I feel like obviously him and Abominus were meant to kind of complement one another, but I feel like Abominus is sort of much more adored. I mean, because at the end of the day, dragons are cooler than space cars. You know what I mean? So I get it. And space drills for certain. But I think it would be unfair to not have Computron have his moment in the sun. The other nice thing about combiners is that usually, people are in for a penny, in for a pound. So if you sell 1, you're going to sell 5. So hopefully there's some business sense behind the scenes that could be done there as well. Obviously, I'd love if Zeta took a stab at it. I'll let you know this year if I'm okay with X-Transbots DX9 or Fans Toys taking a stab at it, but I'm not sure quite yet. But Computron is one of those that I feel like that's a problem. Like, that's a potential problem. That's a set of figures that I think is going to be very challenging to get made, because I don't know if the fan base is there to support it. Although I hope it is. I would definitely support it. But I would say of the kind of big 8 combiners, he's probably the one with the least amount of fanfare. So that's why he's up on my list high, for one, but it's also because there's only 3 Autobot combiners, right? So it'd be nice to have all 3. And I feel like it's feasible to have all 3. And while we're in the pocket, my number 2 is Abominus. For the exact same reasons, except he has slightly more cooler designs. I have significantly more cooler designs. The Unique Toys one is cool, but it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the motif for me anymore. Once again, you get the addition of selling all 5, hopefully, in for a penny, in for a pound. And also you get the people like me that might double up because they want the bot set and the combined set. So that's why he's on my list. And then that brings us to our number 1, which should come as no surprise, which is a Defensor. I'm still amazed that we haven't had one announced yet in this scale. Super popular character, super iconic. It's gonna check a lot of boxes for a lot of people, not only because they want the Masterpiece scale representation. And when I say Masterpiece scale, it's all relative, right? It's how you view scale. But when I say it, I mean like the Zeta Toy World established scale now. But you get those folks, you get the folks that want the bot modes. I'm doubling down for both of those. You get people that are like super into emergency services vehicles, like my buddy T2RX6. Check him out on YouTube, by the way. He loves like emergency services vehicles, right? So like he's going to be interested in that anyway, even if he wasn't in for an MP set, which I think he is, as it turns out. But that's just his bag. And I think there's a lot of people like that. So I think it would be lucrative. I'd love for any of those three companies that I mentioned to take a stab at it, I think after this year, or Toy World and Zeta, obviously, you know, whatever that is. And I didn't mention Predaking because Zeta has announced one, right? If they can survive this Unicron kick in the teeth, hopefully they can get it out there. If I were to give honorable mentions, it would be to the Autobot and Decepticon clones, and also to the Decepticon Overkill and Slugfest that scaled kind of with the MMC ones. But they're less of a priority at this point because I'm like doubling down. You know, I've mentioned this on different platforms, but you know, I feel like we're getting into crunch time. You know, the light at the end of the tunnel is not necessarily shining its illumination upon some of these characters, seemingly. I feel like maybe what I've been doing over the past year is kind of like kicking rocks, saying like, man, this is not going to get done. But perhaps if we as a community start pushing the opposite way, shout out to Sony, TM Reviews, but perhaps if we start pushing the opposite way, if we start becoming vocal as a fan base saying we want this and we will put our money behind this, maybe we'll get some of it. So let's stay optimistic. Let's have positive vibes only for 2020. Sounds like the most ridiculous Instagram hashtag that's probably super overused by this point anyway, but you know what? I'm with it. I'll be back soon. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.